Pakistan is facing an unprecedented setback in the Gulf, with questions now emerging over whether the so-called Islamic NATO has turned into a source of embarrassment for its own nuclear-armed ally. More than 21,000 Pakistanis have reportedly been deported from Gulf nations in just 4 months, raising serious questions about what is driving this sudden and massive crackdown. Saudi Arabia is reportedly leading the deportation drive, while the United Arab Emirates has also sent thousands of Pakistanis back, adding to the pressure facing Islamabad. Some Pakistanis have also reportedly faced detention over videos linked to the Iran conflict, as Gulf governments tighten security and move aggressively against anything they consider a potential threat. The reasons range from absconding and visa violations to criminal cases, but the sheer scale of the crackdown raises a bigger question: what has gone so wrong for Pakistanis in the Gulf? For Pakistan, the episode could become a major diplomatic humiliation, especially if its closest Gulf partners are now taking a harder line against its citizens despite their long-standing strategic ties. More than 20,000 Pakistani nationals were deported from the 6 Gulf states between March 1 and July 13, highlighting the scale of deportations involving Pakistanis across the region during this period. The figures were presented to Pakistan's National Assembly by the Ministry of Narcotics Control, providing lawmakers with an official breakdown of deportations recorded across the Gulf during the specified period. The figures cover all 6 members of the Gulf Cooperation Council, including Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman and Qatar, showing that deportations were recorded across the entire GCC region. Saudi Arabia recorded the highest number, with 15,500 Pakistanis deported during the period. The UAE followed with 3,803 deportations. Oman deported 1,606 Pakistanis. Bahrain deported 521 Pakistani nationals. Qatar recorded 429 deportations. And Kuwait deported 97 Pakistani nationals. Gulf authorities cited a range of reasons for the deportation of Pakistani nationals, with the cases involving different legal, immigration, and security-related concerns across the region. Among the reasons given were security concerns, violations of immigration rules, and involvement in criminal offenses, which authorities said contributed to decisions to remove Pakistani nationals from the Gulf states. Among those deported were 4,628 absconders, while 1,294 people who had been jailed were also sent back. Another 968 people were blacklisted, while 1,155 cases involved Pakistanis whose passports had been lost. A further 689 people were deported for visa violations, and 342 were deported in refused entry cases. The remaining cases, classified under others, accounted for more than 6,000 deportations. The figures also included Pakistani nationals who were detained or deported in connection with videos related to the Iran war, adding another dimension to the deportations recorded during this period. Some Pakistanis were reportedly detained after filming or posting videos showing Iranian attacks in their cities, as Gulf authorities tightened scrutiny over the sharing of sensitive footage during the conflict. Pakistan's parliament was also told that the figures do not include many Pakistani nationals who left the Gulf countries during the same period. Those who left voluntarily or returned to Pakistan using valid passports were not included in the official deportation figures, as they were not classified as deportations by the authorities. The data has put fresh focus on Pakistan's ties with the Gulf states, particularly as authorities across the region maintain tighter security measures and stricter immigration controls. The foreign ministers of the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Jordan, Indonesia, Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt have jointly condemned Israel's continued settlement policies in the occupied Palestinian territories. The ministers categorically rejected Israel's E1 settlement plan, along with related settlement activities being carried out east of occupied East Jerusalem. They also condemned settler violence against Palestinians, including attacks supported by Israeli authorities against Palestinian civilians, homes, and property. According to the ministers, Israel's settlement activities violate international law and contradict relevant resolutions adopted by the United Nations. They warned that the E1 plan represents a dangerous escalation that could threaten regional and international peace and security. The ministers said expansion of the E1 settlement area could undermine the geographical continuity of the occupied Palestinian territory, particularly by severing links between the West Bank and East Jerusalem. They cautioned that the plan could damage the prospects of establishing a viable and contiguous Palestinian state based on the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital. The ministers also referred to US President Donald Trump's comprehensive peace plan, including its stated rejection of annexation and forced displacement. The ministers reaffirmed that a two-state solution, based on international law and relevant UN resolutions, remains the only viable path toward a just, comprehensive, and lasting peace. Finally, they warned that any actions undermining the two-state solution could further intensify regional tensions, threaten international security, and jeopardize the possibility of lasting peace in the Middle East. Washington's Gulf allies are reportedly growing frustrated with Trump's handling of Iran, as continuing attacks deepen fears that US diplomacy is not delivering lasting security. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and Bahrain are now united in their anger, according to the Washington Post, despite differing interests and long-standing rivalries inside the Gulf. Gulf leaders reportedly fear Trump cannot manage the diplomacy needed to secure peace with Iran, particularly while the region remains exposed to missile, drone, and proxy attacks. The concern follows Trump's repeated threats against Iran that were later withdrawn, often after Washington cited progress in negotiations that did not end regional violence. Washington also pointed to movement in talks, even as Iran and its allied groups continued launching attacks that kept Gulf states on edge. Gulf states' anger at Washington is reportedly now at its highest level since February, when Iranian retaliation began bringing the wider conflict directly to their territory. The frustration is now raising questions over America's military footprint in the Gulf, despite decades of US security guarantees, bases, and defense cooperation. Some Middle Eastern nations are debating the value of hosting large US bases, according to the Washington Post, if those facilities make them targets without ensuring protection. Qatar and Bahrain host major US bases while relying on Washington for their security, making their concerns especially significant for America's regional military posture. The Gulf also remains heavily dependent on American weapons, intelligence, and munitions, meaning regional governments have limited options for quickly replacing the US security role. Saudi Arabia's new defense pact with Turkey and Pakistan may signal a bigger strategic shift, as Riyadh looks to build security options beyond its traditional dependence on Washington. A senior European official called the new three-nation pact a signal to the US, suggesting Riyadh wants Washington to recognize growing doubts over its reliability. The official said the three states are now diversifying their security partnerships, combining Saudi resources, Turkish defense capabilities, and Pakistan's military experience. Analysts do not expect these moves to quickly displace America's regional security role, because the US still provides capabilities that new partnerships cannot easily match. But Gulf states are reportedly exploring alternatives as confidence in Washington weakens, using new partnerships to gain leverage and reduce strategic dependence. Gulf states wanted Trump to address Iran's ballistic missile arsenal, which remains a central threat to cities, oil infrastructure, and military facilities across the region. They also wanted Washington to restrain Tehran-backed proxy forces, whose drones, missiles, and attacks have repeatedly widened the conflict beyond Iran's borders. Gulf leaders sought a durable end to regional attacks, rather than temporary pauses that could collapse while Iran and its allies retain the ability to strike again. They wanted safe maritime traffic restored through the Strait of Hormuz, a vital route for global oil, gas, and commercial shipping disrupted by the crisis. Gulf governments also wanted a clear and consistent US strategy, rather than shifting threats, paused military action, and uncertain diplomatic signals. Above all, they wanted Washington to prevent Gulf states from becoming targets, after the conflict exposed how quickly regional allies can be drawn into a US-Iran confrontation.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HT app. Download now.